What purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word in order to enter into a colloquy with Chairman Carter.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many people in this chamber and around the country know, Oklahoma has had a particularly devastating period of time, and I want to begin just by thanking my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and through them their constituents for their prayers and their sympathy and their help, because we certainly have received an extraordinary amount of help from the American people, from the administration, and from my colleagues here in this chamber. While most people have focused on the damage in my hometown of Moore, we actually had, Mr. Chairman, 3 tornadic events. May the 19th, the towns of Shawnee and small communities of Kearney and Little Axe were hit. 2 people died, hundreds of homes destroyed, extensive damage. The second one was the next day, second episode, hitting the towns of Newcastle and Oklahoma City, in addition to my hometown of Moore, and that one cost the lives of 24 people. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then we had a third outbreak on May the 31st that hit El Reno, Oklahoma, and parts of Oklahoma City that are in my district. And this area actually spreads across several congressional districts. The first episode was largely in Mr. Langford's district, the second largely in mine, and the third actually hit Mr. Lucas's district, Mr. Langford's district, and my district. The single greatest loss of life, of course, was in my hometown of Moore, and so my colleagues understand the extent of the disaster. We not only had 24 dead, including 10 children, we had 33,000 people displaced in a town of 55,000. That is, they literally are not sleeping tonight where they were sleeping on the night of May the 19th. In addition, we lost 2 elementary schools, school administration building, extensive damage to 3 other schools, the hospital, the U.S. Post Office, hundreds and hundreds of businesses. So the employment base of the community was devastated as well. Full extent of the physical damage in this area alone is not yet known. The initial estimates by the Oklahoma Insurance Commission are somewhere between $2 and $4 billion, but it'll take a while to actually get through this. So I've spent a lot of the last few days visiting with the people in the communities involved, particularly in Moore, but also in Little Axe and in Newcastle and Oklahoma City, the other areas. And without the tireless efforts of the first responders from all these communities and the surrounding area, we simply wouldn't have gotten through the horror of the experience. The communities in question are extraordinarily close-knit and sadly are quite experienced in this kind of activity. My hometown of Moore has actually been hit by 6 tornadoes in 15 years, including 2 F5s, the highest category. One of the tornadoes in question, this latest incident, was actually the largest ever recorded, 2.5 miles across, and with wind funnel speeds of up to 295 miles an hour. So extraordinary to behold. As I understand it right now, as best we can estimate, there are no current needs for additional disaster funding. But the possibility, obviously, of other disasters and hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, and what have you, the rest of the fiscal year always raises the possibility that the resources that are available will be strained. And I want to make it very apparent that if that were to happen, I'll certainly be looking forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to make sure that should similar misfortune befall other areas, that they too have the help we need. If I may, I'd like to yield at this time to my friend, the gentleman from Texas, Chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Appropriations.
And I thank the gentleman for yielding, my good friend, Mr. Cole. The bill before us today builds on our actions of last year, includes robust funding for FEMA in the disaster relief category, funding that will most definitely assist those who lost so much in Oklahoma over the last few weeks. As of this morning, the Disaster Relief Fund currently has a balance of approximately $11 billion, which is sufficient to address the needs of Oklahoma and other recent disasters. As Oklahoma begins the road to recovery, I will continue to work with the gentleman to ensure that we're doing everything that we can to help the devastated communities, and our hearts go out to those folks. I yield back to my friend from Oklahoma.
I want to thank my friend from Texas who I had the opportunity to confer with during recent days for his kind support and assurances. You know, I know my friend would appreciate this. We sort of think of ourselves as Scotland to your England, but in football season, you know, I always remind people the Red River was an international border for 42 years, and every October it is again. But the reality is, when you're in a tough situation, you don't have any better neighbors in the world than our friends from Texas, and not just on this floor, but the outpouring, particularly from our neighboring state, in terms of volunteers and contributions, and honestly from all across America, has been extraordinary. Both the President...
Time of the gentleman has expired.
I thank the gentleman, and I yield back.